Well, good evening. This is Teresa from Freedom Matters Live, and welcome tonight. We have just a couple events that we're going to talk to you about tonight first, and then we have our special guest, Cheryl Buford. She's going to be coming on and talking about her candidacy for Fort Bend ISD School Board of Education candidacy for the May of this year election. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the event we talked about a couple weeks ago. We are going to be hosting Kash Patel right here in Houston at the India House. That's going to be Saturday, May 6th, Doors open at 5 o'clock. The reception is from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. The dinner is going to be 7 o'clock. Speech is at 8 o'clock. You'll have a Q&A session at 8:30. He is a chief of staff of the DOD, or was. He's the senior director for counterterrorism under the Trump administration. He was the principal deputy at OD&I, also worked under the National Security Advisor on intelligence. Tickets are $125, or if you want VIP and a special limited guest speaking event with him just before everyone else gets there, we're going to be limiting that to about 20 people. So that is a VIP. That would be $500. You get a little bit more personal one-on-one or a smaller group setting, I should say, with Kash Patel. So we're very excited to have him. He is America First person, and he's definitely one to follow. If you haven't followed him, he has been doing a lot of interviews on different podcasts. You can also get tickets by going to our website, and you'll go to our website. It's Freedom Action Matters Group, and you can go to our events section, and you can get your tickets right here. So if you just scroll down to the bottom, you can just click here for your tickets. We're very excited to have him and to be a sponsor for him. The other action item that just came out recently, because we are all about action here at Freedom Matters Action Group, we do have the Texas, so I'm not sure if those of you who have been paying attention, maybe this is more so in other states, but it does trickle down to every single state eventually. So we know that something that might have happened and started in New York or New Jersey or Michigan or another state eventually does trickle downstream down here to Texas. So what we really are looking for is making sure that Texans have the right to informed consent. So Texans for Vaccine Choice, go to their website. They do have an action item, an upcoming House Bill 81 by Representative Harrison. It would protect all Texans from COVID vaccine mandates by providing informed consent, and will be heard in the House Public Health Committee this Monday, which is March 20th, 2023. So there's a couple ways that you can participate in that. One is you can participate from your home. You can email. I've done this many times. They have all of the email addresses. You just basically copy and paste. They also have a simple message template that you can copy and paste it right into your email and vote to, send it to all of them. And so you're writing to them to ask them to please vote yes to pass this so that we do have choice and that mandates do not come back, even though they're banned right now. But we do need legislation to support everything that has been talked about or discussed. We do need legislation to prevent any mandates. So also, we are going to be talking tonight to Cheryl Buford. She is a current Board of Trustee candidate for position 4, and we are so happy that she's decided to come on our show so she could talk a little bit about her candidacy and the things that she's wanting to do for our district. And I say our district because I do work in our district. So she is running against Shirley Rose Gillen for position 4. It is an at-large position. So if you are in Fort Bend, it's really important for you to pay attention because she will be on the ballot so everyone can vote for her. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get Cheryl Buford. We're going to have her join us. Welcome, Cheryl, to Freedom Matters Live. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you, Teresa?
Pretty good. Spring break, so just chilling on a Thursday night. We decided not to go to any place this time, and maybe go to the rodeo and go up to Katy. I think we hit the Buc-ee's today earlier this morning. It was a madhouse, but other than that, we're just chilling here. So you're running for School Board of Education here in Fort Bend ISD. So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and why Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. That's quite an honor. So, I have been involved with education my whole life, practically. I started my career as a teacher, spent 10 years in the classroom, and then and that was in Illinois, came to the University of Texas at Austin. If you're an Aggie, don't hold it against me, but I went to graduate school there, got a Master of Public Affairs, and met my husband there as well. So, fringe benefit. And so, after we got married, we lived in Houston the first 4 years of our marriage and became our kind of adopted hometown. But then we were off. My personal life intersects with my professional life quite a bit. So, we made several moves for his career and ended up in Northern Virginia, just outside DC. So that's where we raised our children. And then that opened up a lot of new opportunities for me. I worked at the Department of Education, and my department was looking at strategies to close the minority achievement gap. And we were specifically looking at the role of outside groups that were providing tutoring. And so, does that make a difference? And it was incredible that, I'd stare at these depressing statistics, and then there would be the intervention of intensive tutoring. And so the scores would go up. There were these phenomenal accomplishments, and when a critical mass of students in a school that isn't performing well, but when they get the help they need, then the whole school is doing better. And so that was very exciting. Kind of, it put me on a quest to kind of really dig into the research and explore where are there programs that are working that are beating the odds, because certainly there's a lot of depressing statistics out there, especially as it applies to Title I schools. So
Right.
that was,
The first
yeah.
2 years I was in Texas, I did work in Spring ISD, and it was a Title I school. And I taught a grade that had three. Of course, it actually had reading, writing. This was back when you had to write a two-page essay was recommended. And I really can't say that when I was a fourth grader, I could have written that unless I was taught explicitly how to do that. And I do remember the first 2 years, it was in the Title I schools. It's different. You are. I remember teaching to the test. I remember a lot of emphasis was on the test because we obviously didn't want to fail. We had fun.
Right.
We taught with mentor text and everything too. But when it came time to make sure that the kids were ready for the types of questions on the test, we really had to expose them. I think we may have overexposed them, but we always did well at that school. It was always 99% or better on most
Oh
of all the
my.
subjects. Except for I remember one year for fifth grade science was 88, which was a big, no for us because we had 99s across the board in third, fourth, and fifth grade. I think one of the disservices in before I got there was that if they put so much emphasis though on testing instead of just overall academic achievement, that the kids who were in third grade, if they did not pass it was tax at the time, the test, they were held back. And so when I was a fourth grade teacher, I had kids who had already been held back in third grade by the time they got to me in fourth grade. And I thought it was such a disservice to those kids to have such emphasis on the testing, because not all of us are good test takers. There's all these
Right.
different type of things that are involved in that. But I don't think that they do that anymore. Hopefully, but you don't have a lot of parent involvement. And so you don't have a lot of that parent advocacy for their kids to not retain them, or to know that that's not really the best idea for them just because they don't pass a test. Because I think you have to look at the whole child. And I know that Fort Bend does that. They look at the whole child. They're not going to hold a kid back just based on a test alone. So that's a
Right.
good thing in Fort Bend.
Well, but it can work both ways. Being on the campaign trail, I meet a lot of people and they tell me their stories. And so there is a mother whose sons graduated over 10 years ago, and her oldest son, she knew that he didn't have the skills to go on, and she actually pleaded with the school district to hold her son back, and they wouldn't do it. And so, she is still, she firmly believes, and it makes sense, that the fact that they just kind of passed him along and gave him high grades for really inferior work, it's really carried over now that he's an adult, because he doesn't know how to be held accountable, and so he's just kind of floating through life. And so she really goes back to his schooling and says, it sure would have helped a lot if the school would have held him accountable and had higher expectations for him.
Right. I could kind of see that too when we were talking about reassessments. And I remember I was a fourth grade teacher, and when the reassessments came about, if the kids were under 75% on a topic, you were supposed to reteach it. They still have this implementing today. I'm not in the classroom now, I'm a librarian. So I'm not dealing with the testing and the grades and things like that. But you still had to reassess those children. And I'm just wondering if a lot of it is just upping the grade, or if teachers are just so overwhelmed and trying to just make sure that the kids are passing. It's a no-win situation either way in those cases, because no one's being held accountable there, except and really looking at the children who are the ones who are not benefiting the most.
Right.
The rest of us will go about our days. We're educated, and I mean, I've seen it. You go to the, I don't know, academy, or a store, and a young kiddo is working, maybe 18 to 20 years old, and you're just doing some basic math, and they can't do basic math to give you change back, or you go get some. I see it all the time. It's rather frustrating, and I know not everybody's good at math, but you have to have the basics in life in order to. I always tell my daughter to not get cheated. I said,
Right.
you better know your math, and it's funny because I try to even teach the elementary kids. We just had a book fair the week before spring break, and I'm like, okay, you have to count out your money. You have to wait for your receipt. How much money are you supposed to get back? Look at your receipt. And I still try to teach them, even at such a young age, to be mindful. And I mean, they just toss their money, on the counter, and you have to count it out for them. But I'm like, no, if they're a little older, I try to make them do it themselves a little bit if I have time. But it's
Oh, that's
interesting.
great. Yeah.
It's really interesting. Um, so, why are you? What is your main platform, I guess, in running for Fort Bend Board of Education?
Well, I have a number of priorities. I probably overthought this, but there's so many areas where I think that the school district can do better. So I am very concerned that we have high academic standards and build cultures of high expectations. And so, that same mom that I was just telling you about that really wanted her son held back, early on. She also told me that when he was in high school, he came home and said, I have a term paper due tomorrow. And she's like, you do, and you haven't started? And so he spent the evening working on it. And at the end of the evening, he said, well, I'm finished. And she read it and said, this doesn't make sense. And so he's like, well, I'm tired. I want to go to bed. She's like, okay, then you're going to have to suffer the consequences. And so the grade comes back and he got a B. She was furious. She went to the teacher and said, this is not B work, and didn't really get a good answer from the teacher. But that's what I mean, having a culture of high expectations, that kids will rise to the level of what you expect. So if you write them off and say, well, they aren't going to produce, then they will progress at your expectations.
Right.
So in fact, former President George W. Bush used to talk about the bigotry of low expectations, and how that was something that he really wanted to change. And it's still here with us. So he didn't succeed so well in that, but he threw that out there, which I've really latched onto, that students can learn. They need the right supports and time on task. And I mean, as you know, as a teacher, I mean, there's so many things that go into that, but we've got to start with a culture of high expectations.
Right.
So I'm concerned about discipline. It's what we're hearing. In some schools, discipline is quite a problem. And so, as my friend Sonia that you interviewed likes to say, when classrooms are out of control, learning stops. And so for the teacher's sake, as well as for the good outcomes for students, we really need to get a handle on that. And teachers need to be supported in that. So what we're hearing is that teachers are discouraged from sending students to see the principal, and that there aren't meaningful consequences to bad behavior. And so then kids are sent back to class. So that's quite a problem. And we have a correlation. I don't know if it's causation, but I just learned that we had a 20% turnover of teachers in the district last year. So I don't know whether there have been exit interviews to say, why are you leaving? Is it a happy reason? You're
Is it early retirement or?
yeah.
I know that at one of the board meetings this year, I believe it was August or September, they were talking about making sure that they were having an exit survey. I know they have the exit survey for anyone who leaves the district, but they were revamping that, so to speak, because the data originally wasn't really getting into the nitty gritty on why they were leaving. Maybe it was just a little bit more general. So hopefully that information will come out at the beginning of this next school year about why are people leaving the district. Yeah, I mean, and discipline, it seems to be across the board. So what are some things that what are some ways you can see teachers being supported? Because yes, there are some times that you have a child who has a mental break, like they're just frustrated, and you don't know exactly what's going on in their life when they're at home. And I maybe this is a little bit more elementary because I'm more elementary than middle or high school, but they have a little bit of a mental meltdown, so to speak. And so they've just refused to do their work, and they go to the principal, they talk, and maybe they're disruptive. Maybe they're disrupting the entire classroom because of whatever's going on with them, whether it's they don't like the teacher, or maybe they had a bad morning, maybe something happened at home before they even reached the school. What may be, I know that they have like the different programs. So is there anything that you've seen that has been a really good benefit that teachers and administrators can actually use in the schools?
Well, my expertise isn't kind of, I haven't drilled down at that level. I would like to hear more about your experience and the experiences of other teachers, what works, what doesn't work. I know from a policy level, I do think that we need to look at the metrics of how teachers are evaluated, how principals are evaluated, because there are incentives for principals to discourage teachers from referring students to the office, and certainly disincentives for principals to suspend students because it makes their numbers look bad. And so I would like to work with teachers and administrators to say, how can we change that? And certainly suspension should be a last resort. We want
Right.
kids in class.
Right.
And
Besides, some kids would do it just to get suspended because they don't want to be there, right? Depending on the
they
age.
might.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's a lot of positive ways that you can re-engage students. I'm sure you know that far better than I do. I've been out of the classroom for a long time, and I was a high school teacher, not an elementary teacher. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit different. But so, yeah, I think we need to kind of draw on the collective wisdom of our teachers and say what's working for you, what's not, and how do you need the administrators to support you.
Absolutely.
And
I think
so,
that's a really great way to start because it's not with a mindset of coming in and saying, well, this is going to work for everybody, because every school is going to be different. Everyone's backgrounds are different. Everyone's even emotional ties to their kids in their classroom are a little bit different. And so I guess you definitely have to have a committee to come about that has a collaborative mindset to figure out, okay, this is going to work here. This is what we're going to do. And then maybe add it into the CIP for the school. I know that we do have the love and logic model, and I know that our principal offers that and offers teachers the ability to actually present that as another way of helping kids, giving them different options instead of the criticizing. And I think it depend. When I kind of go back to, I worked at a bank before I became a teacher. While I was becoming a teacher, actually, I needed a job. So I was working at a bank, and what came to mind is like, you have your system, because we have, it's tier 1 or tier 2 if it's like a minor offense or like a little bit more serious offense, and what the consequences are. So we already have that model at the school, but it kind of reminded me of this like little diagram. Okay, if this happens, this is what you need to do. And there's a lot of gray areas when it comes to behaviors, and I think that those gray areas are probably the ones that can be tackled, right?
right. Yeah.
So, and I think that collaboration will help the teachers understand where the administrators are coming from too. I mean, not everything that may be a strain on the teacher is such a serious offense, but in the moment the teacher's like, I can't get this taught because I have my deadlines and everything, and so everything's
Right.
and during the more stressful times when you're trying to get grades and comments and open house and all these other things, that's when your stress level as a teacher can be a little bit more heightened, and maybe you won't let things go as easily as other times that you're not stressed.
Right.
So I think it's a good way to start having an open dialogue, for teachers and administrators to kind of, see where each other's are coming from. Because as a teacher, I've heard, I try to look at both perspectives. I was pretty good as a teacher, having good classroom management. You get to know your kids, you really show them that you care about them, really get interested in what they're doing, and then you kind of captured them, kind of like that Capturing Kids' Hearts
Right.
program as well. So there are some really good, effective ways to kind of get to know the kids, not necessarily through the SEL method, because there are some ways that you can get a lot of information in there that you don't need to give to kids. I guess topics that you don't really need to be talking about at a school. It's between the parents, but definitely just getting to know the kids, just to kind of show them that you care. It's not just they come in your classroom and they're a person in your classroom and they feel like you don't care about them, because when they do feel like you care about them, they're going to work really hard for you. And
Right.
Giving them some things to do in the classroom, to be a part of a team, a part of a classroom, always usually works too for most kids. But we've just seen so many different things going on with kids now. The pandemic and the lockdowns and the all of the measures that were put in place, and I think we're seeing now the effects of that, how that really impacted the kids and the learning that was lost because of it. And so now we're kind of trying to play catch up, and unfortunately the teachers are on the front end of that. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy. So just one more point related to discipline. The Board of Trustees enacted a new code of conduct, which I think is really good. And so, but now it's the implementation phase, and how do you implement it? And again, as you were talking about being collaborative, just kind of working together, what makes sense so that we get the best outcomes for our students. So, and to minimize the stress on the teachers as well. So,
yeah, for sure. Because it can be quite daunting if you have, you could have a classroom of 22 to 26 kids, and even one kiddo can make it quite difficult if that behavior is not addressed appropriately.
right,
So if you, the other thing is teachers have to realize that they can reach out to specialists. They don't have to go it alone if they're in a situation like that. We are such a big district. You can go outside of your own school and maybe reach out to other people in other schools and see what their counselor would say, or see what their social worker would say. How would they tackle that? Or are there any other ways to tackle that? So, but there are some quite interesting. We have pre-K at my campus, and so there's all kinds of stuff going on from day to day.
Oh, wow. Yep, that's quite an age span, pre-K to
fifth grade. Yep.
So,
yeah, we try to instill that leadership in our fifth graders too. Our teachers at my campus do a really good job of trying to instill that. But you still have. I think the main thing is kids want to talk a lot. They want to have conversations, but they don't necessarily want to have conversations about the content. So,
right.
I think that that social time is so important for
Right.
them to have too. So I always gave that as a reward at the end of the day. All right, you give me my time, and I'll give you some time back.
Oh, that's a good strategy.
Yeah. So and I've listened to the research by different professionals throughout the years. Like I said, I've been in education for over 20 years. This is my 16th year actually working. But I've heard the statistics. When you say something, you have to pretty much present it 28 times before a student, the average student. Some kids you could say something like my brother. You could say it one time and he's got it. But on the average, it's about 28 times before it's like kind of internalized for a kid. So that you have to kind of, there's no real time for spiraling back
Right.
with some of the concepts.
Right.
But so was there anything, you said you had quite a few ambitions for your platform. Was there anything else that you'd like to
Right.
add?
Well, I have several related issues to academic achievement and a culture of high expectations that I break down. That we have such a diverse district, and so everything from special needs to gifted and talented And we need to be mindful and make sure that we're addressing everyone's needs. And so I became very familiar with the needs of gifted and talented students because my own children were blessed to be in gifted and talented programs. And then my daughter went to an academy program in Fairfax County. And so making sure, some of the issues with discipline is that, as you just mentioned, some kids get it, they learn quickly. You only have to repeat things once or twice, they've got it. Others need a lot more repetition. So when you have such a wide span of ability levels in the same class, it can be very difficult.
Mhm.
But so I'm been looking at the gifted and talented programs and the academy programs, and I think there's more that we could do to strengthen them. I've talked to at least one gifted and talented teacher at the middle school level who's concerned that they're watering down her curriculum. And so, I want to address that. I also want to make sure that we maintain a merit-based selection process to the academies. There's lots of pressures outside the school district to kind of look at equal outcomes among ethnicities, and we really need to guard against that so that the students that would benefit from the gifted and talented and the academies programs get the spots, and then other students are supported as they need to be. And certainly we do need to be concerned with students at the low end that are struggling to read at grade level. I mean, the statistics are really alarming right now that a third of the at a third of the schools, elementary schools in Fort Bend County, less than 50% of the children in those schools are reading at grade level for the K through second grade. I mean, that is really awful.
Mhm.
And so we need to tackle that with urgency. Meanwhile, these kids that, like we were just talking, understand things easily, they're ready to move on, we can't hold them back. And so we need to be mindful of addressing all of those different ability needs and looking at how we're doing that. So, and then the other content area that I am concerned about is the career technical education offerings. And it everything I've seen, it does look like Fort Bend ISD has very robust offerings for career technical education. So I'm surprised that the enrollment is declining in those programs, and I wonder why.
Mm.
Because especially in this day and age with the economy, and I think there's more recognition that not everyone could or should go to college. And even if you're going to go to college eventually, maybe it would be good to get your feet wet in a trade or that you can build on later on. So I would think that students would be really chomping at the bit to get in those career technical education programs. But so I really want to explore why they're not and what we can do to change that.
Yeah, that's really good. I remember having it was called vocational school when I was in high school, and I was in a very rural area in Indiana, is where I grew up and went to school in high school. And I remember my brother went there. They had all different types of things that you can go for a trade, but he went in for culinary. And so he did want to be a chef. He didn't end up being a chef, but he did work at a restaurant where he was able to kind of be a manager at some point. And now he's working in the insurance industry. But I think it's really important that not everybody, not everybody needs to go to college. My husband is very successful. He didn't go to college. He went through the Navy and got his training that way. He's an air traffic controller. He's been doing that now for 25 years or close to 30 now. And so you don't have to, in order to be successful, you don't have to go to college. You can definitely get a trade and then be a very successful person. You can even own your own business in that specific trade, So it's just giving the encouragement. And I wonder if that's something that can be talked to with the counselors, who helps select those, helps the families and the kids select their pathway. I know my daughter, she's going to be going into ninth grade. And we're in Lamar now, but we were in Fort Bend up through seventh grade, just because we moved last year. We tried to buy a house before the everything went crazy with the housing market. So I think we got in a good time because we were just renting for a little while. And but anyway, she had the way they do things in Lamar for her is she has to have a specific path. She's like your daughters or your kiddos. She's GT. She was at the GT Academy in Fort Bend at Quail Valley in sixth grade and seventh grade, and very smart. So she gets to go through the AP classes and get college courses and do that, as well. But they also have specific classes that you can take that are called endorsements, and so you have to take one class every year in order to qualify for your endorsements. And you have to have everything recommended for you. Basically, you could choose, but you have to also have recommendations. But she's looking to maybe go into interior design or something. They didn't have specific on that, and architecture. So she's taking a construction class, because in the construction class, and she'll take it every year in addition to her regular classes. And it just kind of prepares her. It gives her all the background of how houses are made and or the business side of things. So hopefully that'll be a really good thing for her. But every student has to, if they want to be on that pathway and get the endorsement for that, then they actually get 4 classes at minimum that they take. They offer a lot of different classes. As a matter of fact, she can earn, I think it's up to 46 or 47 college credits just in high school alone. If she were to, yeah. So I'm like, please do that, because that's going to save mom and dad a lot of money. So
Yeah.
We're on the path for her to get a lot of credits that would transfer to, college and at a much cheaper rate for mom and dad. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting, just to kind of pull the resources from district to district, see what they're doing. You do have to have the teachers that are qualified to teach those classes and that thing, those types of things.
Right.
But, I learned about it this year because I had no clue. I only have one daughter, and she's going to be ninth grade next year. So it's all new to me, but I think it's a really great opportunity for her, even though she's probably going to have to go to college for her, specialty.
Right.
But I know
Yep.
I know they had like everything, like nursing, all different types of trades. I mean, I have a really big, thick booklet that I had to look through to see what was going to be. They have psychology classes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, things like that. I remember in high school, I thought I wanted to be an accountant, and they did have accounting 1 and accounting 2. Just so happened to be at my. Then when I started taking it and talking about the ledgers and all that, I was like, this is so boring. I can't do. I love math, but
Yeah.
but I think it's so important. There's so many different types of jobs out there that you can offer, and I know we have a lot of academies and a lot of things that we do offer throughout the district. And I know they were talking, the last board meeting, they were talking about busing and making sure they had the busing appropriately for the kids. And I don't know if before they weren't able to have everybody come back to the campus for busing from the Career and Technical Center. I don't know if that was a hindrance, but it would be interesting to see what actually is happening there and why the enrollment is not as high as it maybe should be. Or maybe we have too many other things out there that people are interested in. I don't know. I know I want to try to go over there and get my hair done, So they offer they offer some meals sometimes at pretty discounted prices, and I know they have the daycare center over there and things like that. So um, hopefully they're helping in a lot of ways for the kids that are interested in those careers. Um,
Mhm.
what do you think Fort Bend is doing well?
Well, I mean, the fact that they have such a robust career technical education is wonderful. I think they're doing that well. And I think that the attention that they are paying to gifted and talented, even though I would like to make some tweaks, I think that a lot of it is well thought out, and how they select students for the GT program. I I wonder, in a district our size, whether there aren't more students needing GT services. And but that's something that I want to look into. So I think that the security, building security, is excellent. They're very careful about that. The In terms of the finances, that they're they are attentive to details, which is why we have a AA+ rating. So yeah, there are a number of areas where they are doing well.
Yeah, hopefully, I know they've had to make some cuts because of their budget deficit. So I'm hoping that gets resolved. I know there's certain programs that are now completely eliminated or mostly eliminated, and we're not sure they're coming back to all the campuses. But you can't have you have to base your decisions on the number of kids that are at that campus and how many employees. And I always wondered why there's only one middle school GT Academy for the entire district. And I think they only allow maybe 400, 500 kids because it's a school capacity of like 1,100. And so you have half the school is utilized for kids who live in the neighborhood, and then the other side of the school is used for the GT program. So I always
Mm.
wondered, well, if you're busing all the kids just to that one I mean, it's kind of centralized, somewhat centralized, but I guess maybe have a couple different options. So I know for my daughter, I could have kept her there, but where we live, it just would have been a long day for her. You
Mhm.
know, uh, she would have had to come with me, leave the house at 7, and not get to
Uh,
the school until like 5 because of busing from the school to where I work, and then get home about a half hour later. So it would be a very
yeah,
long day. We had
yeah.
that conversation about, do we stay there or do we just move to where you're going to have friends in the neighborhood? In 8th grade, it's all about friends. So
Of
we,
course it is.
I
Yeah,
think it's a good right decision for her, for our household. But so you have a website.
I
Um,
do. Yep.
it's CherylBuford.com. I'm going to pull that up. And are there things that people can do to support you running for Board of Education?
Absolutely. So there is, you can donate right on the website. And like all political candidates, I need some funds, and the funds go for things like push cards and text messaging and signs. So we have some really concrete um, purchases that we need to make to get our message out. So I would love to have help with block walking. And when you were scrolling down on my website, there's a place for people to contact me and volunteer their time as well as their money. The other way people can help is to tell their friends about me, and that they are, if they're excited to vote for me, then tell their friends, so that, because that word of mouth is the most effective way to help a candidate.
That is true. That is true. if you're interesting and you do the research on your person, and your friends know that they can trust you, they're going to vote for, whoever you're voting for. I know my husband knows that I am all involved in who's running, locally now. And so he usually asks me. So I'm like usually texting him, okay, this is the person you want, or this is the person, if it's like local people. Um,
Right.
and then, yeah, so you could sign up here, to help Miss Cheryl, learn more about where she stands here. And do you have any upcoming events where people can meet you in person, or do you do anything on Facebook or any Instagram, any shout outs or anything like that you do? Or
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking. I am having a meet and greet in Sugar Creek next week on the 23rd. And so if people write me, I will give them the address, and that would be wonderful. We'd love to have you join us. And then on the 25th, we, well, Congress PAC has endorsed 3 of the candidates for Fort Bend ISD. Sonia Jones, that you interviewed, a gentleman named Oscar Sines, and me. And so they are sponsoring a golf tournament at Quail Valley
okay,
Country Club on the 25th. So again, people can reach out to me and I'll get them information. And so that would be great.
oh, that's fantastic. That's a good way to get to know you in person and go talk to you about the issues maybe in their community that they're having, so they can get to know you and where you stand on that and make a good decision.
Right.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit going on. There's quite a bit that can be helped in Fort Bend, and people can share this video. We talked quite a bit tonight, and so share the video, get the word out, and we are going to be praying for you, Miss Cheryl,
Well,
and
thank you.
anyone who wants to support, please reach out, donate. It does cost money. Everything costs money, or if you can't donate, donate your time, and go block walk and reach other people, and spread the word.
Yeah, one last thing. I have a Facebook page, and so they can find me at Vote Cheryl FBISD. So I haven't figured out Instagram yet. So
So you can
hopefully,
go to Vote Cheryl FBISD, correct? All right.
yeah.
That's where you can find her on Facebook. Vote Cheryl FBISD. Well, Cheryl, it's been a pleasure talking with you tonight, and thank you for your time. And we wish you the best of luck. And hopefully, people will watch this and then reach out and give you the support that you need to be successful. Don't forget, I believe it is the 24th of
Right.
April is
Yeah.
when early voting starts. The actual voting happens on May 6th. If you're a day voter, if you're the day of voter,
Right.
you can come out on that day. I believe that's a Saturday.
It
So
is. Yep.
make sure you get out and vote. You got to vote. You got to vote. We can only make things happen if we are not on our couch watching TV, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you tonight, Cheryl, and best of luck with you. And if you need anything from us, from Freedom Matters Action Group, just let us know.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been so fun to have a chance to chat with you. And so, yes,
Yeah,
thank you for the opportunity.
absolutely. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, so make sure that you are out there and getting information out to your friends about Cheryl Buford. And go to her website, check it out, and make sure that you give a donation. Donate your time, donate your funds if you have it, and help these. This is how we make some differences in our communities. We go out and we vote for those that have the same mindset as us and the same goals as us, which is in Fort Bend is to give a really good education to the kids and support them in being as successful as they possibly can. So we appreciate Cheryl coming on tonight. And that is going to be it for our show tonight. Stay tuned. In a few weeks, we might have Oscar come on as the third Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustee candidate. So we'll keep you posted and let you know if he's going to be on our show. But for tonight, have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.